Okay. All right. Good evening. It's May 5th, 2025. This is a regular meeting of the Town Council. Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025 extended through June 30th, 2027, the ability of public bodies to meet in a fully remote or hybrid manner. This law allows us to continue holding meetings remotely without a quorum of the council physically present at the meeting location. This meeting is accessible in real time by Zoom, by phone, and is a live broadcast on Amherst Media, Channel 9, and live stream. There are, in fact, 8 counselors in the room and 2 other counselors at this time online. Please be advised that this meeting is being held in person and that the remote access option is provided as a courtesy only. In the event of technology issues with the remote connection, the meeting will continue in person as scheduled, such that the members of the public are encouraged to attend the meeting at its physical location if possible. Given that we have a quorum of the council present, I'm calling the May 5th regular town council meeting to order at 6:31. I'll call upon each counselor by the name that they have indicated they would like to be identified. And at that time, please unmute your mic and say present. This will indicate that you can hear us and we can hear you. Pat DeAngelis.
Present.
Anna Devlin Gothier is absent at this time. Counselor Ette is absent at this time. Lynn Griesmer is present. Counselor Haneke.
Present.
Bob Hegg.
Present.
Counselor Lord.
Present.
Pam Rooney.
Here.
Counselor Ryan.
Present.
Kathy Shane.
I'm here.
Andy Steinberg.
Present.
Jennifer Taub.
I'm here.
And Alicia Walker is absent at this time. Okay, there's no chat room for this meeting. If counselors have technical issues, please make sure Athena and I know. There's no change in the order of the agenda, and there is one general public comment period during this meeting. With regard to announcements, just make note of the fact that we have committee meetings coming up. CRC, the next one is May 8th at 3. Finance Committee begins their May schedule with meetings starting tomorrow at 4, and they will meet on, meetings starting tomorrow at 2, right? Athena? Finance is at 2 tomorrow? Okay. And they meet on Tuesdays at 2 and on Thursdays at 9 through most of the month of May. GOL is May 13th at 6:30. TSO will be May 15th at 10. Just a reminder that we are still actively seeking people to volunteer for committees in the town. And the council itself also is looking for people to volunteer for Planning Board, ZBA, Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Finance Committee, as well as the Charter Review Committee. The Sustainability Festival will be this Saturday on May 10th from 10 to 4 on the Town Common. There's no hearings tonight. We will go instead to general public comment. If you would like to make a comment and you are on Zoom, please raise your hand at this time. If you would like to make a comment and you are in the room, please make sure you have signed up with Athena, who is over here. Athena, how many people have signed up? 1. Okay. Public comments are on matters within the jurisdiction of the town council. Residents are welcome to express their views for up to 3 minutes. The council will not engage in a dialogue or comment on a matter raised during general public comment. Public comments are not reflective of the opinions of the town council. Jennifer, you have your hand up. Huh? Okay, that's fine. We'll recognize speakers in which the order they have signed up. So the only one at this point is in the town room. Deb Leonard, please come forward. State your name and where you live.
Deb Leonard, District 3, speaking on behalf of myself and no one else. I came tonight with the questions that the Finance Committee has submitted to the superintendent for the budget hearing on Tuesday, and I had intended to make certain parallel statements about it, asking if you have these same questions for your own executive officer, but I decided instead to go a different direction after reading the questions themselves. One of them, well, first of all, there is over 40 of them and counting. Many of them are extensive. And when we as school committee members become school committee members, we are required by MGL to attend a training that makes a lot of point of delineating the realms of the school committee and the superintendent, and in particular with respect to the finance and the budget. There's an extensive cycle that they want us to be mindful of that starts with an implementation, goes to an assessment of needs and priorities, continues with a proposed budget, school committee deliberating and approving, and y'all get to weigh in at the end, and it says specifically you approve the bottom line of the general fund budget. I was staggered by the depth that our general line budget is being scrutinized, and some of the questions are inappropriate. The school committee has admitted that they cannot revenue their way out of the budget crisis. So that's the beginning of one question. Another question is, what is the ASD's position with regard to the ownership of any improvements to the region-owned middle school? That, if you want the Amherst School Committee to answer that, I suggest you address it to the Amherst School Committee and not the superintendent. Then if the preschool, which we call the Early Childhood Education Center, moved out of Crocker Farm to the building on the Wildwood School, would the 6th grade fit within Crocker Farm and the Newport River? If not, what is the lead time that would be needed for such a transition? So these are questions that I think overstep my responsibilities as a school committee member. I don't know where you all stand on this. And then the last one being to the region, recently a RSC member made a public comment referencing the cuts. Again, I am that person. Y'all have my email. A lot of you have my phone numbers. Feel free to exchange them. If you want to ask me why I said what I said, please don't ask the district employees to do that. That's inappropriate. So I just want to say, no committee is going to get you out of these kinds of problems. This is a communication problem. These are boundary problems. And whatever way we come up of trying to figure this out, this is not the way to do it. At the District 3 meeting, Councilor Ryan yesterday said, I don't want to speak for the school committee, and then went on to speak for the school committee. They feel like they're not being heard, and we feel like we're not being heard. Perfectly capable of speaking for myself. Thank you very much. Normally I stay, but I'm not in the mood to listen. I like to indicate that I'm in a frame of mind of listening and not just speaking, but that's not happening today. I'm going to go home, have dinner with my family.
That concludes public comment. We have no consent agenda. We'll have 2 votes later on and a vote to adjourn at some point. We have resolutions and proclamations, and we have none, and no presentations and discussions. The first action item tonight is about the budget. It's the fiscal 2026 budget that the town manager released on May 1st. This is a presentation that the town manager will do along with other staff that I know he will introduce. What I want to say to the council is this is a beginning of an opportunity to ask many questions. And so tonight, while you may have questions, think of them as questions for the Finance Committee. Think of them as questions you want to make sure that when the budget comes back to us at the beginning of June, that we are fully aware of the responses and so forth. That doesn't mean we won't have an opportunity to dialogue tonight about the budget. It just means that it's the beginning of a month of discussion about the budget. George, you have your hand
Would you
up.
please recognize Councilor Walker has joined?
Yes. Alicia, can you see, Councilor Walker, can you hear us? You have to turn your speaker up. We can't hear you. We can see you. While you're working on that, we'll proceed. Okay? So with that, Paul, I'm going to turn it over to you and your extremely capable staff.
Sure, thank you. And I do want to recognize that I'm joined by our financial consultant, Melissa Sawatsky, who has agreed to power through our May meetings with us, working double time. Jen LaFountain, who's our treasurer collector, Holly Drake, our comptroller, and Athena O'Keefe, who's taken on lots of different roles in addition to being clerk of the council. So it's been a really strong team. So tonight, I'm presenting to you the town manager's budget for FY26. It's a budget that is balanced, but we are only able to achieve that balance by making some difficult decisions. Even when incorporating these decisions into the budget, the town's overall financial conditions remains very strong. Why? We will be borrowing. Why do we care about a strong budget with strong fiscal conditions? We will be borrowing significant sums of money for the new building projects, the school, and the library, plus others in the coming years, and maintaining a strong bond rating is imperative. Our commitment to balanced budgets, investing in infrastructure, maintaining healthy stabilization accounts and reserves are key features of a strong bond rating, as is our commitment to meeting the outstanding pension and OPEB liabilities. OPEB is other post-employment benefits, which means health insurance that we owe our employees after they retire. The town remains on sound financial footing because we're careful in our budgeting and emphasize strong fiscal management. The FY26 budget presented new challenges as we face inflationary pressures not seen in years, including increasing wages in a competitive job market, rising healthcare costs, higher energy costs, and we continue to see supply chain issues. The budget is built on a solid foundation of fiscal integrity that has been a hallmark of the town's finances for decades. This budget adheres to those values of prudent planning, conservative estimating, meeting financial obligations first, and making decisions with an eye towards the future. Maybe the next slide. So first, those values are concepts that we talk about, but they're placed into action by people. For the town of Amherst, it's a team sport. Holly Drake, Melissa, Jennifer, and Athena all played a large part in producing this budget. In fact, they played the major 99% part of producing the budget. What we present tonight was months in the making, and I want to thank these four powerful women for leading the town's budget development process. This is a nearly 300-page document that identifies every item that the town intends to spend over the coming fiscal year. I also want to thank our colleagues at the library and schools. Library Director Sharon Sherry is a leader who has shouldered an inordinate amount of work leading the library over the years. With the construction of a new library, her work will just get more complicated, but she is totally up to the task. And for the first time, we've worked with Superintendent of Schools Dr. Z and District Finance Director Shannon Bernacchia, who are very good partners who are responsible for multiple school districts and budgets. Dr. Z is a no-nonsense leader working to place children at the center of all of our decisions. We all appreciate the communication and cooperation you have shown throughout this process. Next slide. The development of the budget began with the presentation of the financial indicators in November of 2024. This is one of the best practices that the town has embraced for decades. This is where the town looks at its budget for the current fiscal year, for prior fiscal years, and future fiscal years. And we look at all the different indicators about the strength of our finances, how our tax rate measures up against other communities, things like that. The town council uses this information to establish budget policy guidelines, and they vote those in December, which you did, and subsequently voted additional recommendations in April. This budget responds to all of those council actions, including the performance goals voted by the town council for the town manager earlier this year. Next slide. The total spending for the town's budget is $103,261,100. This is the first time the town's budget has exceeded $100 million. The budget is balanced. No override is required. The budget reflects and supports important community values like education, equity, and sustainability. It recognizes the importance of providing excellent services and fiscal stability. It prioritizes investments in public schools and essential services. When we began the FY26 process back in the fall of last year, we knew the path ahead was going to demand making choices. In fact, your budget guidelines acknowledge the tough decisions that were anticipated in the coming year. The fiscal pressures forecasted in last year's planning have only intensified with ongoing cost increases, particularly in health insurance. And if you recall, our initial health insurance increase was close to 20%, 19%. And in negotiating and discussions with our collective bargaining partners, including the schools and our non-union employees, we were able to make plan design changes that reduce that increase to 14%. Still a big increase. The budget requests from the schools continue to present fiscal challenges. After the adoption of the town council's budget policy guidelines, the council subsequently voted to recommend that I increase funding for both regional schools and elementary schools beyond the levels originally planned. This came very late in the budget process and just a few weeks before we were prepared to present this budget to you. While this action affirms our shared commitment to supporting public education, it has required difficult trade-offs elsewhere in the municipal budget. This budget that I'm presenting to you tonight aligns with the town council's budget policy guidelines and to the extent feasible, given the town's fiscal constraints, supports the town council's FY 2025 policy goals. But I want to note that I may not be able to deliver on all of the town council's goals. The budget includes the freezing of 6.4 vacant positions across town departments. While this was an exceedingly difficult decision, it reflects our determination to maintain fiscal balance while continuing to deliver high-quality services to the town. This action was taken even with the 4% budget increase which you had allocated for the town. And these reductions in staff were really focused on meeting our collective bargaining agreements, our COLAs, and the health insurance. It didn't have anything to do with the school budget. Freezing these vacant positions rather than resorting to layoffs allowed us to preserve jobs and protect our dedicated workforce. Supporting our working staff has been a guiding principle throughout this budget process. This approach also enables us to meet our commitments for health insurance, honor our collective bargaining agreements, and funding the cost of living adjustments that we have promised. This explicitly acknowledges both the rising cost of living and the invaluable contributions of town staff. Every one of these frozen positions is needed, and we will work to fill them in the future. I want to be clear that the decision does not lessen my commitment to our police, to our fire, to our DPW, to our recreation, and especially to our CREST departments. So, budget components. So the budget actually includes 5 major components. And this sort of is a quick summary of it. We're not going to look at the numbers really, but I want you to understand that there's the municipal budget, which is what we think of the town side. We have the elementary schools budget. We have the regional schools budget. We have the library budget, and we have the capital improvement program. Next slide. So the financial indicators presentation we presented to you back in November of last year showed a budget that could increase responsibly at the rate of 3%. Subsequently, the town council's budget policy guidelines adopted in December put 3% into the guidelines, as I mentioned earlier, with the full expectation that the increase could be modified during the course of the budget preparation process as we got new information, like what we learned what the state was going to do as we refined our budget projections for revenue, things like that. The budget guidelines also ask the staff to adjust revenue projections with focus on areas where forecasts had proven to be conservative, such as interest income and things like that. So after refining the budget numbers and reviewing the governor's budget, I presented a recommendation that the overall town budget could be increased by 4%. Town staff believe that while these projections were more aggressive than we normally projected, they were within a reasonable range. But I think we really do need to monitor how we're doing as we move forward in the coming months. Historically, funds were allocated proportionally across the four major areas of government: town, elementary schools, regional schools, and library. This has been a 4% increase for each budget. The longstanding budget practice was changed this year in response to the town council's vote on April 7th to recommend the regional school budget increase by 4.81% and the elementary school budget increase up to 5%. Next slide.
Paul, I want to just take a moment and make sure that Counselor Ette, you can hear us.
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Let me do this one.
Can we confirm that Counselor Walker can hear us too?
We'll try that again. Counselor Walker, can we try it again? We're not hearing.
No, we can't hear you.
Holly, were you going to do this one?
Yeah, it's just, wait, okay. So I'm going to go over the next couple of slides. So on the revenue summary, again, as was stated in the town council's guidelines, they asked us to be less conservative, a little more aggressive in some of our revenue approaches. Property taxes is about where it normally is at 3.5%, or increase of 3.5%. When you take into account the debt override that was voted by the residents for the Jones Library, it brings us up to about a 5.8% increase in taxes, property taxes for the projected FY26 budget. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, the Fort River School debt exclusion, not Jones Library. Too many projects. I'm sorry. I apologize. Local receipts, we increased 8.1%. The biggest increases you will see are in motor vehicle excise taxes and interest income. Again, in response to town council guidelines. State aid is currently projected to only increase about 2.8% for FY26. Again, those final numbers are not out yet. There may be some slight adjustments there, but that's what we are projecting. Under the other sources, there was an increase of 17.9% of the money that comes in from the ambulance fund, and that is simply because they have a very large capital purchase in this year's budget, which was not in last year's budget. So that percentage is based on some one-time capital improvements that they are paying for. Enterprise fund budgets, as you will hear more about later, have been increased substantially. There is a lot of debt and capital and infrastructure costs that we are going to have in both the water and sewer funds especially. And it also includes that one-time funding for the elementary school. So that 9.5 increase in that category is what explains that. You go to the next one, Athena. So this is where in the budget, you'll see the numbers that we're talking about, the major revenue categories: property taxes, local receipts, state aid, and other financing sources. And those are the percentages that I just spoke about. And you can see these charts as well, just for the folks at home who are listening, in the budget books on page, I think it's 48 and 49. Next slide. And so on the expenditure side, I think as many of you probably heard throughout BCG processes and finance committee processes, that the 4% that we were originally projecting for all of the four major categories of the budget was not going to be adequate. It was not even enough to cover our collective bargaining agreements, steps and COLAs, and our personnel commitments. So therefore, the reason why we unfortunately had to resort to freezing some positions. It also left all of our municipal operating budgets level funded. So increases in costs like, electricity, utilities, just services and purchases of goods are going to be difficult in the coming year because we were not able to increase our operating expenses to match what's happening out there in the world. It preserves our core services. We were very careful about looking at the places that we could freeze positions or possibly make cuts. And we were lucky enough that we had vacancies in some key places where we would have been likely looking anyways. And the big takeaway on the expenditure side is the investment in our education. In order to fund the schools, the elementary school at the regional school at the higher than 4%, we had to make some choices that, we've been discussing and we will continue to discuss. And again, this is the second half of the chart that just shows you where those numbers that we've been talking about come from. So on the municipal and the library side, it is a 4% increase. The elementary schools, which are a 5% increase, and the regional schools at 4.81%. We're going to start talking about capital. That is the capital allocation right there in the middle of the page, $9.6 million for FY26. And again, the total projected revenues match the expenditures. Next slide.
I think it's me. So the Regional School Committee voted on March 31st to request an increase of 4.81% from the town of Amherst. The overall increase for the regional school budget for all 4 towns is 6.5%. The town's share represents reverting to the assessment method agreed to in the regional school district agreement agreed to by the 4 towns originally. I have funded this increase at 4.81%. And I want to recognize that the town of Leverett has approved its share of the budget at its meeting on Saturday. And that's this there. And so Shutesbury has also approved it. So there are 3 out of the 4 towns approved the budget, and the budget is finalized. The Amherst School Committee, which oversees the town's 3 elementary schools, voted a 6% increase. The 6% increase, neither actually the 4.81% and the 6% were in compliance with the town's budget guidelines, and the elementary schools was not within guidelines of the town council's vote of April 7th, with recommended an increase of up to 5%. And the 6% is beyond the capacity of the town in the current budget. I have funded the elementary school committee budget at the top range of what the town council had requested. So I'm going to take a minute just to go through some of your major goals and how the budget responds to them. And so for climate action, first, I just want to make a super great announcement that the town has been designated a climate leader. We're one of the first towns in the state to receive this designation. It was announced on Friday, and Stephanie Ciccarello and I were at a ceremony in Watertown to receive our certificate from the Lieutenant Governor, and that was a really exciting thing. And to be one of those first communities to receive this climate leader. And that opens up the door to additional funding opportunities to meet our climate action goals. The Lieutenant Governor in her remarks said that this designations were for those overachieving climate activist communities, and Amherst certainly is one of those. And the budget maintains the momentum to provide funds to support climate action initiatives and make our buildings and vehicles use less fossil fuel. And you'll see one of those vehicles at the Sustainability Festival on Saturday, as long as it doesn't rain. It's our new fire truck, which is the first hybrid fire truck in the state. So that'll be on display. Under Community Health and Safety and Social Justice, this budget fully funds the town's DEI department and its initiatives, while we have had to reduce the CREST department, and provides for funding for the groundbreaking morning movement and mentoring programs. It recognizes the growing role and importance of aquatics in our offerings, which is fully funded as a revolving fund. And I also note that each of our public safety divisions, CREST, fire, and police, have had staff positions frozen to make this budget work. For the housing one, we have retained funding for implementation of the rental registration program. We thought it was important, since this was a recent council initiative, to continue to move that initiative forward, because it was really about community quality of life issues. And we'll maintain our plan to roll that out. And we have retooled the position of planning director to be planning and economic development director, which is what we're recruiting for now. And the town staff will continue to support zoning initiatives designed to promote building housing, making the permitting process smoother and more efficient. So in terms of administrative leadership, there are no layoffs, but I've had to freeze 6.4 positions to enable the budget to accommodate the dramatic increase in health insurance and honor our commitments to town staff. And that was not something we did lightly, but in the near future, I'll be developing strategic management restructuring steps to create better communication and more accountability and more efficiencies. For the infrastructure management maintenance, boy, there's a lot going on here. We're making a substantial progress with the construction of the new Fort River Elementary School, which will merge the two outdated elementary schools into one state-of-the-art net zero building, which will be completed in time for classes to start in September of 2026. We are protecting the quality and quantity of our water supply with the construction of the new Centennial Water Treatment Plant, which will be completed this year. Major investments in our wastewater treatment facility are protecting the environment and making this facility a better place to work. We're installing a new gravity belt thickener, and we'll be dedicating funds and staff time to complete a comprehensive facility needs assessment. We'll be breaking ground on a new and renovated expanded Jones Library in mid-June, we hope, and with substantial funding, non-town tax funding. And we're poised to move forward on our much needed public works facilities and fire EMS stations. And last, we have inked agreements with Amherst College and the University of Massachusetts, which provide significant funding to share and to shore up initiatives. And and initiatives that we both share in terms of education and economic development and public infrastructure. And I'm working to secure another such agreement with Hampshire College. And lastly, I think one of our big issues is generating new revenue. And I think the door that the university has opened to work with them is to advocate at the state level for a fair formula for pilot payments from the state. And I know town councilors have been advocating that at the state level as well.
Mine. So this is something that we put in all of our budgets, and it's our 5-year.
Please move closer to the mic.
Oh,
Thank you.
this is something we put in all of our budgets. This is our 5-year 5-year budget outlook for both. We do a revenue sheet and an expenditure sheet, and so we start from where our budget is today, and then sort of build in very conservative increaase over the coming 5 years, because we, can't assume that we will meet the 3.5% growth increase in taxes, because we're limited by Proposition 2.5. So we estimate $650,000 for new growth, and that's maintained until we see the growth in the coming year, and then that new growth becomes part of the base moving forward. In addition, in state receipts, we average about 2%, because that's about the percentage increase we've gotten from the state year over year. It's pretty consistent. And we have an estimate for like the other sources, like the ambulance funds. Holly stated earlier in this presentation how it increased significantly this year. We know that next year it won't be as high, and then in 2 years they'll be buying another large vehicle, and so it sort of flows with their capital needs. And I want to make a comment. We've been very aggressive about the local receipts in this year, and they increased 8%. It is not sustainable for us to increase that year over year as an 8% increase, because we had maybe trued up, to your point, that maybe we had been ultra conservative. And so if we true it up, then we can't true it up again next year. So that was sort of a one-time grab of the new revenues. And so we have an estimate in there of about 2 to 3% of those growths in the local receipts. Next. And so this is our expenditure side, and you'll notice at the bottom, I'll just draw attention to it, that um, it's going to be tough. And this is not unusual for us at this time to say that because we will probably find in one of the areas that we will do better, but we don't know which one. So we always err on the conservative side for each of them. The debt, you can see is projected in there for the debt exclusion. That's based on a schedule that we have from our financial advisors to pay off the school. It offsets directly from what we have it increasing on the revenue side as well. In capital this year, we did an increase of the 10.265%. We did a slightly less percentage increase on the capital. We've built back in that we will spend on capital the 10.5 going forward, and that we'll hold that back going forward. And we've also built back in, we had done a one-time slowdown of our OPEB assessment. We're assuming that we're going to be able to pick that back up in the future. Again, all of this is estimates, but we want to, hope that we can get back on track with what we feel are good financial practices. And so the next slide, yes. So capital improvements. This is an overall look. This is a slightly different graph than we've given you in the past. And this talks about the $9.6 million that we are spending in fiscal 26. So this is slightly different than the capital program because the capital program is looking at what's the new money that we're doing in fiscal 26. This has both the new money and the money that we had generated over time, that debt, like we broke it out. What is that debt that we're paying on, that debt number that holds up? How much more cash capital can we spend year over year? Well, where are we spending that? And this is how we broke it out. And also we chose to include in this is not only the 2.65%, but the total $9.6 million, which includes not only the cash capital, the debt, some of which is paid by CPA. So you can see there the CPA projects, I believe it's $176,000 of CPA money is going towards debt this year. The ambulance fund we talked about is $674,000. Why the public safety is a larger piece of the pie. And because the debt exclusion is not included in that pull down of the 10.2 or 10.5%, when you show it on here, it shows that commitment to education. And so that $2.1 million of debt exclusion is part of the $9 million that we're spending on capital this year. It's just not part of that set aside for new capital. It's a different set aside. So I just wanted to explain that here. And so in the capital improvement programs, first, before I forget we did make a decision in this capital program to limit the number of vehicles that came forward. And you will see that on this, there are quite a few vehicles, but there were a lot more requests for vehicles than we've put forward. And this does, in the long term of that capital program, move a lot of, fairly large dollar items into the year 27 or 28 and makes that look not so favorable. So we are continuing on the public safety radio system. We had put in for a $1.1 million borrowing for this. That's notable because in your last slide where we talked about the $9.6 million, this number is not included in that because we will not spend that money this year as a borrowing. The first time that we will spend money on that will be in fiscal 27, maybe possibly 28, depending on when they get their equipment in hand. We are buying an ambulance, and while that is a vehicle purchase, that was funded directly from the ambulance fund, meaning it's funded from receipts of taking someone to the hospital, medical billing. And so, and the ambulance fund is also funding some cardiac monitors and other ambulance equipment within their appropriation this year. to put on the ambulances. There is a significant amount of $450,000 that is to help the school sort of figure out their sixth grade relocation or whatever they deem the most appropriate use of that funds in reconfiguring their classrooms with the design of the new school and what that means for the students and the space that they have. They are also buying buses this year, so they're doing $250,000 worth of vans for special education transportation, and there's a I don't remember now, $200,000 towards the electric school buses. So this is a very large project. This is a lease project that has both buses and infrastructure for charging those buses that will be put at the middle school where all of the buses are housed. But this is essentially it's a lease deposit, lease pay down. So the 200,000 helps them manage that project over time. We talked a lot about in JCPC about the $1 million for infrastructure repair. That is sort of a general repair for all of the buildings under our facilities management team. And it will likely go to repairs actually on this building is what they sort of highlighted it for this year. The roof repairs alone on this building are fairly significant and would probably eat all of that up, believe it or not. They have done an extensive assessment of all of the town buildings, which I'm sure that they will share to you over the coming months. That gives them a better understanding of what it would take and the assets to maintain the assets that we have in the town and what the actual repair costs are, which of course, when you find out, are more expensive than you had hoped. We did do some infrastructure and sustainability. We're continuing the $250,000 to the sustainability department, and that money is spent in collaboration with other projects here to help Amherst remain sustainable. The $100,000 for traffic calming for the DPW is significant in the sense that that was originally requested at a smaller amount of $50,000, but it wanted to take into account some of the resident requests. Many of them were for traffic calming needs, and so we doubled that. And Guilford did say that that would not cover all of the requests from the residents, and including the requests that he'd gotten directly that didn't come through JCPC. So they're going to go through a project on what projects makes the most sense and what projects can be aligned with other things they're doing in that part of the area, and they can sort of make efficient use of that $100,000. But that's why that's on that list. And we're going to do $750,000 of road repairs in addition to the Chapter 90 money that we get for roads, because Chapter 90 is never enough. I went down the street today. I got to call Guilford about that. So yeah, so that's what it's a little bit less than the 800,000 or so that we annually get for Chapter 90, which has been significant, has been more than that in some of the most recent years, and hopefully will be this year. But this is on top of that, so that we can do a little more road repair than we have done, than we would have been able to do without it, basically. That's it. Oh, I'm still talking. Okay. So we do a 5-year plan. When you look at that plan, you'll see that the out years are similar to the 5-year forecast of the budget, with negatives, with decisions to be made about how we want to prioritize those projects. We have aging infrastructure, like I talked about with the assessment that the facilities department has done. We've also, we have that in the DPW in our roads, water, sewer, other places as well. And we're going to try and get back to the 10.5% to maintain our capital needs, because I think that unfortunately right now where we are is the bare minimum to get some of the repairs that the council wants to do in collaboration with maintaining our operating budgets.
Okay. So the last slide. So this budget, we think that this budget is realistic. It's a no-nonsense budget. It balances our commitment to a strong fiscal policy with the recognized needs and desires of the community. We have emphasized resilience, as our staff will be trying to meet the many needs of the town, but we're going to have fewer employees doing it. We'll need compassion, understanding, and supportive ideas to navigate in these coming years. And this budget is responsible. I didn't want to reduce town staff, but each of these positions would provide added support for the many duties of these departments. But fiscal responsibility is critical. Without a strong fiscal base, no initiatives are possible. So I want to circle back, and I hope you'll join me in thanking this finance team. This is a really complicated budget. There are a lot of moving parts. To pull it all together is really, it's a many-month process that they've dedicated themselves to. And not to make it anything easier, but while they're preparing for the budget, preparing this presentation, tomorrow we have a analytical call with the Standard & Poor's rating agency where we have to make a 51 slide deck presentation about the condition of the town and its economic future. So on top of everything you're seeing that they produced today, we'll be doing that tomorrow. So we hope to let them get home early tonight. So thank you for your time. Oh, the budget calendar. So this is a budget calendar, which I think we alluded to earlier. Budget presentation tonight. Finance Committee begins reviewing the budget tomorrow. The public hearing on the budget on May 19th. Public forum on the capital improvement program, June 2nd. And the town council vote we're projecting is June 16th, although you have to vote by June 30th.
The public hearing
Is what?
May 12th,
May 12th, I'm sorry.
and that will be by Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
So, well, first of all, thank you so much. I know this was difficult. There were decisions being made at the last hour, and that led to even more. And I would like to say, can we at some time see what you're going to present to Standard & Poor's? Be interesting to see how we present ourselves. The floor is open for questions, and I'm going to just begin with one clarification. In the capital budget, I assume we do not include the regional capital.
We include the borrowing, which is regional capital, is
Okay.
part of the debt number that balances the capital.
So it's in the 9 million plus.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Are there other questions? Pat?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for your work on many, many levels, all of you. I would like a clarification from Paul. I believe you said there were 6.4 positions frozen, but as you progressed in the presentation, you said you reduced CRES. So have positions been frozen in CRES or positions been eliminated in CRES? Can you please clarify that for me?
Sure. So we had different, we looked at the vacant positions that were vacant because we didn't want to do layoffs. And there was one position at the DPW. There were multiple positions at the fire department, and there were multiple positions at the police department. There were multiple positions, 3 at the Crest department. And then there was a half-time position at the rec department. So I chose to reduce positions by 1 at each of those other 3, and then 2 at the Crest department.
But Paul,
Right? And 1 at town, I'm sorry, 1 at town hall as well in the finance department.
you froze them.
Froze them.
Right.
That means there's no funding for that position this year, but the position is still on the books, yes.
Thank you. Anything else, Pat? Okay, George or Counselor Ryan?
So again, thank you, all of you, for your work, especially when you're dealing with counselors who are, what we say, budget challenged, who look at these numbers and sometimes. So my job in part is to, one of the things I have to do is explain this to my constituents. And so if they come to me and they ask me, why have we had to freeze these positions on the municipal side? If they ask me why the municipal budget is being level funded and there's no increase for operating on the municipal side. If they ask me why we've had to reduce our 10.5 commitment to capital to 10 point, I think it's 256. 265, thank you very much. See, I told you I'm budget challenged, numbers. When they ask me that question, what am I supposed to say? I know what I want to say, and I want to make sure that it's accurate. Obviously, the increase in health insurance costs. Obviously, the commitments we've made through our bargaining agreements, COLAs, et cetera. But I also want to add something else. And the question is, am I right?
So
Because it seems that to me, as a layman and no expert in budgets, and I look at those numbers, I would say there's also another piece to that puzzle. And perhaps the question, I've addressed it to Paul already, but perhaps he wants to answer it again. When I look at it as a layperson and I try to explain it to my constituents, there's something I'd like to add to that story, but so far I have not.
So when we get our budget recommendation based on revenue, we start with the revenue and we say you have 4% to increase your budget. When we put that on the town side and we take out the health insurance and the COLAs, step increases, collective bargaining, we don't have enough, the 4% isn't enough. So that's why we had to reduce the positions in order to fund the town side. So that's why, so that stands alone. We needed to generate more revenue for some of the other initiatives for education. So we reduced our capital from 10.5 to 10.265. And that helped with the regional increase in my mind. It's not a one-for-one type thing, but it's sort of how we created more revenue in the pot. And then the third thing is that we looked at the elementary school request of 6%, the town council's vote of up to 5%. We recognized that the schools were going to be moving from 2 schools to 1 school, when one would assume there would be some cost savings because you don't need 2 principals, you don't need 2 everything. And also their energy costs will be eliminated in essence. So this year, in FY26, they have a gap. So we're requesting the council to allocate free cash on a one-time basis to support the budget for this fiscal year, with the idea being that there should be projected savings for FY27. I'm not sure if I hit what you wanted me to hit, but, and Holly,
Yeah.
Holly or Melissa can add to that if you want.
Anybody else? Okay. Counselor Ette.
So I think Pat asked the question that I wanted to ask, and I had not exactly a follow-up, but more of a comment, which is that, is it possible, you don't have to do that now, to paint a picture of what these frozen positions mean? When I see 6.4 FTE, it's a number. And it is a number that could be interchangeable. For example, if it were 1 position that was frozen at CRES and 2 at the police, but practically for those different departments, it means something different. And so I'm hoping in discussions that will continue, if it is possible to describe not just in the numerical terms, but what the freezing of these positions mean?
What it means is that there'll be fewer people. Right now, all those positions are vacant. They're not filled. The police department, if you recall, at the beginning of CREST was reduced by 2 positions. And so this is a 3rd position that they'll be reduced. The council's initiative was to increase the fire department by 4 positions. And they have vacancies, and I've talked with the chiefs of those departments, and they're not going to be able to fill those positions. It's just the pipeline isn't strong enough. And we're interviewing today and next week for police and fire. We hope to fill some of those positions, but the applicant pool isn't strong enough. With CREST, they've had 3 vacancies. And that was a hard one for me to go from going from 10 employees to 8 employees for that department. They have been fortunate to have a very large grant from the Department of Public Health. That's uncertain for next year. So that whether that money can be there or not is a real question. I also think that we're doing an assessment of CREST right now, which we're hoping to get done in June or July. And that will inform us about what CREST should be doing, what it can be doing. I believe in CREST and I believe in its mission, but I think that it needs a frank analysis of what it should be doing better and what kind of staffing levels it really deserves. So I know that it's a controversial thing. And I just had to make some judgment calls on every department. And, I think the finance department wasn't happy about losing one of their employees. DPW is not happy about losing one of their employees. And just tried to spread the pain. That's sort of the philosophy we took.
Did you have additional questions?
Again, just a comment.
Yeah.
If I'm getting it correctly, it's not a loss. Again, it's simply that some positions are being frozen. Okay. And I think it's important to stress that point so it doesn't end up that at some point, what is frozen melts and disappears. Yeah. And that's the reason why it is vital that we know that even if a position is frozen, there's something that is being lost in that freeze.
Councillor Haneke.
So I have a follow-up on what Councillor Ette and Pat have been asking about, but also a couple of other questions. And my follow-up relates to the use of the word freeze and what you've said tonight, but on page 44, your staffing summary shows a reduction in FTEs for each of these positions on each of those lines. It goes from 10 to 8 for CREST. That's the easiest one I can say accurately. 48 to 47 and 51 to 50, I think, for fire. So if the staffing summary is fully losing those positions in the document, how do we track the freeze? Because the document on page 44 seems to imply that they are gone. They're not frozen. So my follow-up to that on the issue of the loss of positions is it sounded in reading a lot of your opening statements and budget messages and all of that you hope to use the next fiscal year to determine how to restructure the municipal government regarding provision of services and potentially the loss of 6.4 positions. If that is the case, does that mean that you see that the town will need to lose 6.4 positions, but the ones that you are freezing for FY26 may not be the ones that are permanently lost? And then I'll stop there if I may have, I have other questions that I'm trying to limit for tonight.
That's fine. Please go ahead, Paul.
So those positions are not in the budget. There's no money for those 6.4 positions. That's why we have to show it as a reduction in those positions. The positions can remain on the books. So if outside funding comes in or whatever, we get an inflow of money, we can use that money to fill it. From an HR point of view, the positions still exist. But in terms of funding, there's no money to hire someone to fill those positions. And so that's why it must show up as a reduction in the number, in the head count for the town. And that's the only way, even with a 4% increase, that the town can meet its budget guidelines.
Counselor Haneke?
Oh, and the restructuring. So we're looking at a lot of different options on that. And in terms of, they're not fully ripe for us to talk about right now, but we're looking, what I think one of the council's goals was to look at our organizational structure, reduce the number of direct reports to the town manager, streamline some of our decision-making processes, things like that. So I think that's one of the things that we're looking at.
Counselor Haneke, other questions?
So I think you're going to say the exact same thing to my next questions. But I thought I'd put them out there because not everyone reads the full budget in the residents and all. On page 7 in your budget highlight sections, you talked about needing to calibrate the budgets to meet the revenues available. What's your plan to help the council, the school committees, the library trustees begin that process? You also talked on that page that short-term yearly cutbacks are unsustainable. I absolutely agree with that comment. We need a plan. So what is your plan for engaging decision makers in the thoughtful long-range fiscal planning, innovations and service delivery and collaborations across all levels of government that you talked about on that page? And then you also talked about on page 8, the targeted management restructuring. When do you think you'll be ready to talk about that?
I don't know the answer. The last question, I don't know the answer to that. We have a lot on our plate right now. It takes a lot of time and communication to make that happen. In order for the long-term, long-range, you need to have willing partners who are going to participate in the conversation. I am not the only decision maker. The superintendent is, at the town council is. You are ultimately the appropriating authority, but there are other elected officials that need to be at the table as well. And for the regional school district, there are other towns that need to be at the table as well. It's a complicated conversation. I know counselors have presented, and members from the school committee have presented a couple different proposals to and begin that conversation. At the staff level, we have good communication, but it really is going to be a major policy discussion that has to happen. I think when we look back, I think we're going to see this as being an easy year. And I say that because we were fortunate with the regional school district, with the changing of the assessment method, that our increase, even though the school district was up 6.5%, our increase was 4.8%. That won't happen again. That we've got that savings happened this year. So next year is going to be whatever the regional school district wants, and then 3 of the 4 towns will decide if that's what the budget is. I think we're these sort of like, we're going to cut our way out of the budget, just like revenuing our way out of the budget. I think those are really hard things that you have to make some really strong, difficult choices about what you're not going to do. And I think we've really worked really hard to maintain our investment in our capital, maintain our commitment to meeting our OPEB and pension liability commitments. Those are, people say, oh, so easy, just cut 50,000 or 100,000 from those commitments. It's exactly the thing that we're going to have a conversation with we can point to that. They look for that from the rating agencies. And people will say, well, who cares about the rating agencies? I do, and I think everybody here should, because if we go out to bid for tens of millions of dollars and we don't have an excellent bond rating, which we do now because of some short-term fiscal decisions that we've made, then everybody's going to pay a whole lot more, even in a bond market like it is today, which is very volatile. So we need our bond rating agency to be on board. We need our policymakers, which are you and the school committee and the library trustees, to be on board to recognize that to maintain our financial viability, we have to make these kinds of decisions. And that's why we felt it so imperative that we make those decisions, which is reducing headcount. And I've always said, it's all about the headcount. We've added a lot of headcount in the last couple of years with, CREST, with firefighters, with rental registration. we don't have the revenue to support everything. So that's where it's coming home right now. And I think we're going to look back and say, that wasn't so bad, because I think next year is going to be really challenging.
Okay. One of the things that I don't want to lose sight of, and I want to just thank the group of people from across our unions that got together and brought the rate down for healthcare. This budget would be so much worse if they had not done that, and we really owe them a huge thank you for making that sacrifice and helping us out during this process. The other piece, Paul, I believe at this point, only one town has approved the budget, and that is Leverett, which was 15.1%. Shutesbury is not until May 31st, and Pelham is May 10th, and we will be ourselves on May 19th. So, but we are on track, and having Leverett do theirs was a significant piece. So we want to thank them for that. Are there other questions at this time? Comments? And again, just remember, you're welcome to sit in on any and all finance committee meetings. You can be in the audience and make sure you give the finance committee questions and so forth. Kathy.
I wasn't a question. You led into what I was going to say. Tomorrow, we are looking at the capital plan. So we got the bird's eye view tonight and a couple of slides, but there is 5 years worth and the library. And then on Thursday, it's the two schools budgets, regional and elementary. So that is this week. And I put it in the last finance committee report, but if anyone wants to see the schedule for when we're looking at each piece, I can just resend it. The one other thing Lynn had put up, when we're meeting on May 20th, unless there's rain, we're hoping to do the topping off ceremony for the elementary school. So instead of starting the meeting at 2, we'll be starting the finance committee meeting at 1. And members just agreed today to that change because the timing for the event is 4 o'clock and we couldn't actually be 2 places at once. So we made it possible. So that's just one change on what you put on your slide, Lynn.
Okay, great. Bob Hegner.
Yes, I wanted to echo Lynn's comment on thanking the collective bargaining units and the non-union employees for agreeing to, fix the problem with the health insurance premiums. That really helped us tremendously, and thank you all. I also want to thank Paul and your crew for dealing with you said this year was easy. I don't think it was very easy, to be honest with you. And I think you did a pretty amazing job in getting to a balanced budget, given all the issues that we have. I'll save my technical comments to with the until the finance committee meets. But I do want to put out a concern I have, which is we have aging infrastructure in water and sewer that needs to be addressed. And I want to make sure that we're making every effort to understand what that is, what the commitments we have for those systems. I mean, I realize they're covered under the enterprise funds, but there's only so much you can raise water rates and sewer rates. So anyway, I do think I see that as an issue that hasn't maybe gotten the attention it needs. I don't think it. I think you're aware of it, and DPW is aware of it, but it hasn't gotten the attention it needs among the public, and in the understanding among the public that we have some infrastructure which is more than 100 years old. So we're holding it together, but sooner or later we're going to have a major problem, and I think we need to understand what we need to do in order to prevent that from happening. So, but again, I'll save those comments for the finance committee meeting.
So I agree with you 100%, and Holly's going to jump in there add on this as well. We do have funding, we are building the Centennial Water Treatment Facility, as I mentioned. We're doing the gravity belt thickener at the wastewater treatment plant. We do have substantial fund money in the budget to do a comprehensive analysis of the wastewater treatment facility, which is really important. I mean, we run into all kinds of challenges, and those are the facilities. Those are not the pipes that are underground, and that's where a huge investment also has to be made. These departments are fully self-supporting. They have to be financed by the revenues raised by rates, and that's another burden on taxpayers and rate users. So I think it all comes out of the same pocket for many homeowners. So I think we have been kind of conservative on the rate increases in the past, and we've always been sort of the bottom half of our neighboring communities. We're going to be sort of mid-range, top half this year, and on our presentation to you.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor,
Holly, did you want to add anything?
You pretty much got exactly what I was going to say, is that, I mean, unfortunately, the rates did have to go up. We do look at the rates very carefully every year. We are, there is capital funds included this year to begin facility assessments in both the water and sewer enterprise funds. And the hope is that with those facility assessments, it will also help us take another look at our rate structures and see if there's anything we can do there to get those into a better, I don't want to say better format, but just to make sure we're not missing anything there. So that's hopefully will be part of that assessment as well.
thank you. Counselor Walker.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just wanted to revisit the conversation about the frozen positions. And I was just wondering, because Paul, you also said that you think next fiscal year will be even more challenging. And so to me, that even though we're referring to these positions as frozen, it doesn't appear that there's a tentative plan to restore them, at least in the next fiscal year. Is that true, or is there a tentative plan to restore any of these positions? And if so, in how many years?
So there without additional revenue or additional budget cuts, it depends how much more money we get next year. But, we would need substantial new revenue from somewhere to enable us to refill these 6.4 positions. And I don't foresee that, actually.
Okay, and so is there any kind of limit for how long a position can remain frozen and be on the books? Like, is the intention to then just keep it frozen for the foreseeable future until or unless there is new revenue? Or at some point, would we then say that these are no longer positions that we are going to be funding ever?
So I think the positions, it's sort of two different systems. The position is on our org chart through an HR, but unless it's funded, it can't be occupied. So we don't have funding for it to be occupied. CRES has the advantage of oftentimes there are some pretty good grants available to CRES that aren't available for other departments. They have been pretty aggressive about looking for grants. If it's a grant-funded position, it only lasts as long as the grant. That's the downside. It's not incorporated into the town's budget.
Counselor Haneke.
During the budget process at Finance Committee, could you provide the org chart that shows how many positions are still on the books for HR, and maybe show which ones are not funded so that we know? I mean, we found out this year that the library has 3 positions on their chart that are, quote, frozen because they cannot fund it. So I'm curious how many positions in town there are on our org chart that are not funded. So I don't know how,
yeah.
I don't expect you to do it now, but at some point, can we get that information?
Yes. So what we show in the budget book are the actual positions that are being filled, and that's what shows. There's an org chart for every department in the budget book. There are dozens of positions that no longer exist. We may, I'm not sure, I don't know, but that we just don't get filled anymore. But Holly, you think we could have produced something like that? The list of all the positions? Okay. Yes, we can do that.
She says assuredly.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Nice. Are there any other questions or comments at this time? All right, I'm going to move to a motion. This is a motion that we do every year, and that is in accordance with Charter Section 5.5A to refer the FY26 budget, capital inventory, and capital improvement program to the Finance Committee for a public hearing on the FY26 budget and recommendation on the budget and capital improvement program to the council within 30 days. Is there a second?
Jane seconds.
Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, then we'll move to a vote. Counselor Ette,
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer's an aye. Counselor Haneke,
Aye.
Bob Hegner,
Aye.
Counselor Lord,
Aye.
Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Andy Steinberg,
Aye.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis,
Aye.
and is absent. And so it passes 12 in favor, 1 absent. Our next issue is regarding Paley Village. Paley Village, there's an
Can we
entire.
just thank
Oh,
our
Can
staff?
we thank
Yeah,
the
thank
staff?
you.
and-
Have a good night. Good night sleep.
Good night. And do well tomorrow. We know you will. So Paley Village is it's a road acceptance. Right now, however, we need to indicate our willingness, and then it needs to go to the planning board. So I'm going to make the motion and then we'll move to questions. And I'll take a second, move to questions. The town council hereby declares its intention to lay out Paley Village Place as a public way and to refer the layout and plan to the planning board for its review in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81G to 81I, with report back to the town council within 45 days from this referral. Is there a second?
Second, Hegner.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments? Yes, Counselor Haneke.
So. Um, the memo, thank you for the memo, said on page 3 that under the next step section from the petitioner, a title certification listing of names of all persons. I'm not going to read all of these. Grants of easements from the town engineer, a review of the meets and bounds, confirmation the road is complete, current condition, and other items, things like that. Does the motion that was just made cover doing all of those next steps? Or do we need to include those next steps in the motion if we want them done?
No, they have to be done for you to accept the road. And so that's incorporated into it.
Okay. Good question. And yes, Kathy?
I just have a question, Paul, from when we get information back. It says originally they were talking about sidewalks and they decided they didn't need them. I'd like to know why. I've seen some of the other newer developments have all put in sidewalks, which I think is a good feature when we're building new. So it's just I don't need you to answer it, but I'd like when this comes back, an explanation of why they decided not to do that.
Okay. Pam Rooney?
Thank you. In the packet that we had, there are numerous conditions that were listed by the planning board at the time, 2004, that I want to make sure as the project is reviewed that those conditions are actually being met. It's 20 years later, and it would be well to go back through that checklist again. will this be verified before it actually comes to us for approval?
So the planning, and I know Dave Zomack is here, the planning board will look at what, if they've lived up to what they've put into their decisions. So I think that's where that would lie. The planning board and the town engineer would also have to review it to make sure he recommends its acceptance.
Are there any other questions? Then we will move to a vote. We're going to start with myself. Lynn Griesmer is an aye. Counselor Haneke.
Aye.
Bob Hegner.
Aye.
Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
Yep.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Andy Steinberg.
Aye.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis.
Aye.
On is absent. Counselor Ette.
Aye.
It's unanimous with one absent. And the, that concludes our action items. Sorry. We have no appointments tonight. We did do a lot of committee updates. Are there any further? Let's start with BCG. No. CRC. Pam Rooney.
No update.
Okay. Elementary School Building Committee.
No, we have a meeting on the 16th, and I talked about the topping off. Those are the two events.
Okay. Finance Committee, Kathy.
Nothing new from finance. We're about to go into our twice a week meeting schedule.
Okay. GOL, Counselor Ette.
No.
Okay. JCPC has concluded, so we will not be hearing from them again.
If retired.
You retired. Oh, wow. That's a big statement. Jones Library Building Committee, Pam Rooney, you had a meeting.
We had a very short meeting last week. Nothing to report.
Okay. You paid a few bills. TSO, Andy Steinberg.
Yes, we had a meeting on Thursday of last week, and we are pretty close to the final drafting of what we're going to be seeking comment for. And we will be sending copies of our initial proposal to individual counselors. We're not asking for time on the council meeting, but welcome counselor comments so that we can make sure that we're addressing issues of concern and hearing your comments on issues that we've identified. So thank you.
And this is for the Parking and Transportation Commission. Yes. Kathy Shane, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I have a question, Andy. Well, I have a question of the committee. I know you tabled for a while the intersection near the Fort River School, but it is, we moved in JCPC, and then the manager did it as well. We moved what was quite a large request for design to next year, pending some decisions. And the year after, there's a penciled in $6 million to do it. So I would urge you to refocus or focus again, rather than refocus, on limiting the options and getting to some kind of, whether we're funding it next year or not, but leaving a $6 million, which is about 3 times the last roundabout we put in. So this is, a stretch because it's sitting in the capital budget. So it would be nice to get closer to a narrow to an option with some buy-in, however you can, over the next few months is what I would request, not tomorrow, but to make it clearer where we're going.
Thank you. Any liaison reports? Seeing none. We have no minutes. Town managers report. We have a written report. Paul, did you want to?
Just a few highlights. Again, the Sustainability Festival this weekend. which should be very good. And then you'll see our new fire truck, which is not officially in service, but you'll be able to see it. It's kind of exciting. On the front page of the town manager report, there's a photo of the town hall with the 2 lanterns in the turret. And that was to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the ride of Paul Revere and William Dawes. And it was the, 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. So our state rep gave us a couple lanterns and said, throughout the Commonwealth, they're trying to get people to hang these, and we did. And just credit to Sam and to Angela for somehow figuring out how to make that happen. We had a groundbreaking, sort of a groundbreaking. I don't think there's any ground actually broken, but at the community homes in North Amherst, 30 home ownership opportunities to start to build generational wealth for 30 families. And it's one of the things where the neighborhood has welcomed it, embraced it, and supported it all along. So they're making really terrific progress. And there's a lot of site work being done. So that's one of the real hero projects, I think, for the town to have advanced. And there are very few locations in Western Mass where this could have happened because you had to be in a designated area. We happen to have one of them. We were aggressive. We partnered with a really strong nonprofit partner in Valley CDC. So that's a great project. And then Memorial Day is coming up, and it's a normal, the same kind of setup where you will meet if you want to march in the parade, you meet in the Spring Street parking lot, and then you'll march to the center of town over to community. It's where the War Memorial Pool is, and behind that bathhouse, there'll be a commemoration ceremony there. So those are things I want to mention.
Okay.
Oh, one other thing. The Leverett Town Meeting also approved CPA funds for the track and field, which is again, good news story.
Way to go, David. George, Councilor Ryan, I'm sorry.
Paul, just a small question, and maybe it's already been decided, which is why you said what you just said, but my understanding was the Memorial Day celebration would take place at the new revitalized North Common. Is that a misunderstanding on my part, or is that?
We had discussed that, but I think the veterans prefer.
They want to go back to more memorial?
Because of the memorial that's there.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions of the town manager? Okay. We have no minutes. Oh, I'm sorry. You got a written report from me last time. Let me move on to future agenda items. On the 19th, we hope to have 3 proclamations, one for Memorial Day, one for Race Amity Day, and one for Pride Month. We will be, this is May 19th. We will be dealing with the motion and approval of the regional school budget and assessment method. Hopefully, we will have a presentation and discussion of the percent for art for the elementary school. Then on the 2nd, we'll see where we are in transportation and parking. We will come back, this is June 2nd, with the water and sewer first reading with a special public comment period. And then on June 16th, we will actually do the second reading and adoption because there's actually bylaws. And that's the date when we will hopefully adopt the budget and capital improvement program and potentially intergovernmental agreements. One of the things that still is outstanding and we need to keep track of is that we have several town council appointments that we still need to make and or extend. And we also have town manager, many committees coming up. We do have a meeting scheduled on June 30th, should we need it. And we probably will for those purposes, if nothing else. Are there questions about future agenda items or comments or requests? Andy?
Yeah, I was just curious, since the regional assessment method that has now been proposed by the school committee is the regional agreement method, does it require a vote?
Good question. We'll find out. Kathy?
Yeah, Lynn, on the various schedules of when we're doing hearings or forums, when exactly is the capital plan? Because on one thing it said the same, the hearing, on the 12th was the budget and the capital. Are they both on the 12th?
On May 12th is the public hearing on the budget.
Just
okay?
the budget, but not the capital plan?
But not the
Okay,
capital.
thank you. And
On June 2nd is the public forum on the capital.
okay, thank you.
Okay. And in the case of the public hearing on the budget, that's a finance committee meeting, and you will be chairing that. And on the public forum on the capital improvement budget, that's during a council meeting, or it's actually part of a council meeting. Okay. Are there other questions about the schedule? Yes, Jennifer.
But May 12th, so that's during a finance committee meeting?
That is a finance
But is
committee
it at
meeting.
this-
No, it's a special, it's a Monday.
Yeah.
And finance will run it, but if counselors want to come, it'll be posted as joint if there are 7 of us.
Right. If there's 7 of us, we'll call the meeting to order.
And it's a hearing, so it's 6:30. It's a
6:30.
hearing, so
Okay.
it will not be a back and forth amongst us. It'll be taking in comments.
Right. Thank you for the clarification. Are there any other questions, comments, or requests for agenda items? Okay. Are there any counselor comments? George, did you want to report on your district meeting?
We had an excellent meeting. The
You
weather,
all-
sorry?
You and Hollow.
Yes, Howell and I had an excellent meeting and the weather cooperated. We were well served by Angela Mills, who came through in a remarkable way, as she always does, with tents and chairs and microphones. Had about 50 people, give or take, 40 or 50 folk. Lynn was there as well. We had Dave Zomek speak, and we also had Steve Gone, the Assistant Fire Chief. So it was, I think, a good event.
Great. Pam Rooney?
I wanted to remind people that on Wednesday, starting at 4:30, Ancestral Bridges, hosted by former counselor Anika Lopes and her mother Deborah Bridges, will be hosting at 29A Cottage Street. They are doing a nice opening of their new home for Ancestral Bridges. So that's Wednesday.
Great. Thank you. Pat?
Yes, you mentioned earlier that the proclamation about gay pride would happen early in June. I want to let everyone know that on June 22nd at 12 o'clock, Amherst will have its very first gay pride march. And I'm totally excited. It is generated by community members and totally supported by the DEI department and queer and non-queer members of our town council. So thank you all.
And with students from the high school.
And student from the high school.
Yeah, great. Counselor Haneke?
This is not a council item, but I wanted to thank our superintendent, our high school principal and vice principals, and the performing arts department. The performing arts students at Amherst Regional High School just returned from a 4-day trip out of the country to Montreal. And in our day and age of concern about border crossings, they were one of the few high schools from the US that went to an out-of-state festival and kept their commitment to go there. An out-of-country festival, many of the US high schools pulled out of the festival because of concerns, and it was a successful trip. And I just want to say thank you to the administration that stuck with the kids and gave them an opportunity that many do not have.
Great. Pat, did you want to talk about our district meeting? So Pat and I had a district meeting and it was all about roads for 2 hours and 15 minutes. We were actually very happy to have both Guilford and Jason Skills at the meeting. They made the same presentation they have made to TSO. And we had about 40 people and it was very appreciated. And actually nowhere nearly as contentious as we thought it was going to be, although people are very concerned about our roads. So, yeah. Anything else? Any other counselor comments? Then I am.
Lynn, just a quick question.
Yes.
Do you have a sense that you pulled in a lot of people that weren't District 2? Because we were thinking of doing this for District 1 too.
We did, and we also have a tape of it.
Okay.
So, because it really, I mean, we really asked a lot of our staff to be there for the 2 hours and 15 minutes, and it was.
That's what I was thinking of, not
yeah.
trying to duplicate it, but people are talking about school buses going to break an axle on one of our streets. So it
Right.
just on a,
Right.
what do we do about it? Yeah.
With the presentation is both taped and we will have a hard copy of it that we can also attach. And it's very similar, if not identical, to the one that was done at TSO. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? See none, I make a motion to adjourn and seek a second.
Second, DeAngelis.
We are going to move to Counselor Haneke,
Aye.
Bob Hegner,
Aye.
Counselor Lord,
Aye.
Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Andy Steinberg,
Aye.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis,
Whatever, aye. I'm sorry.
and Counselor Ette,
Aye.
and Lynn Griesmer's an aye. We are adjourned. It is 8:05.